Verse 3. In the ancient days, our country was sparsely settled. Families were a good convenience. But behold, the land is full of people. I have not to deal with a few scattered barbarians. Verse 4. I have to deal with learned people who have scarcely room to stand. I am only one man, and ye but 72. Verse 5. Of ourselves we can do nothing. Shang-Ti, the true God, hath shaped the times to our hands. Whether we live to see it, it matters little. The time will surely come when the emperor will be obligated to destroy the books of the ancients. Verse 6. Let us therefore take the cream of them and prove for their preservation while we may. Verse 7. Caillou, Confucius, then divided up the labor amongst his 72 disciples, apportioning the books of the ancients justly among them. Verse 8. And so great was the wisdom and scholarship of Caillou that in 12 days' time some of his disciples were ready with their reports to begin. And from these reports Caillou, Confucius, dictated, and the scribes wrote down his words. Verse 9. And it came to pass that when a committee presented a revision before Caillou, that he even knew it before it was read in the council, and he dedicated thereon, making the necessary alterations, after which the subject was given to the scribes to rewrite out in full. Verse 10. Now the whole time of the first setting of the council was 8.5 years, and then they had been over all the work. Verse 11. But so great was the wisdom and memory of Caillou that he called out from the missings of his disciples sufficient to require yet 2 years more deliberation. Verse 12. And there were thus produced from the lips of Caillou 22 books, which contained the digest of upward of 18,000 books, nor had any man in all the world ever done the 1/10 part so great a feat of learning. Verse 13. The scribes wrote 6 copies for every one of his disciples, and when they were thus provided and were ready to depart, Caillou spoke to them, saying, verse 14, What say ye is the highest best satisfaction? And when the disciples had answered, some one thing and some another, then the master said, verse 15, To know that one hath done the highest thing within his power, this is the highest best satisfaction. For what is any man at most but an agent of the Most High? Verse 16, To be true to one's own highest idea, is this not serving the Father? To be neglectful in such conviction, is this not the sickness of all the learned? Verse 17, What honor say ye hath any man? The disciples answered, Some one thing and some another. After a while the master said, verse 18, If those beneath him honor him, then it is no honor to him. If those above him honor him, then it is a reproval of his other deeds. But if he honor himself, he hath great honor indeed. But who can honor himself except he is perfect in his own sight? He cannot do this. Therefore he hath no honor in extreme. To choose little honor, to choose a medium line, is this not the highest any man can attain to? Verse 19, To grieve with one own self because of imperfection, this is great folly. To eat fruit and herbs and rice, these are the purest diet, but only a fool would starve rather than to eat flesh. Rites and ceremonies are useful, but even these a man had better dispense with than to go to war for them. Verse 20, To rest on the ancients only, this is great folly. To honor the ancients only, and to believe that they only receive revelations, these are the extremes of foolish understanding. Verse 21, To remember that the Creator is ever present, and with as much power and love and wisdom today as in the ancient days, this is wisdom. Verse 22, To try to find some good thing one can do, this is credible, but to do nothing good because one cannot do it in his own way, this is execrable. Verse 23, He who findeth a good work to do and does it hath much satisfaction, but he should not exult therein, for he hath only done his duty. I have no honor in these 22 books. Verse 24, 2 kinds of men I found, those who are predestined by the gods to accomplish a certain work, and those who are born with predestinations. The first are erroneously called the highest, because they are at the head of the great undertakings. But they are nevertheless but instruments in the hands of the gods. The others, who are born without predestined work, never can understand the former. Verse 25. To be born near enough to the light to see it and believe in it and have faith in it, this is a great delight. To be so far from the Creator that one cannot believe in his person and presence, this is pitiable. Verse 26. I divorced my wife because I discovered she could not bring forth heirs to belief or faith. No man should be bound to a woman whose desires lay in the corporeal self, and woman should have the same privilege. Verse 27. He who is wed to the Great Spirit, how can he dwell with one who is wed to the earth? Verse 28. To one man celibacy is the highest life, because he hath joy in his heavenly Father. But to one who hath not this joy, celibacy is a great punishment. The society must admit both conditions. Verse 29. There is no means between these two, therefore both must be provided for. Verse 30. Those who desire celibacy approach the termination of the race. Those whose desires are the other way are of a breed not so far on. Verse 31. There need be no quarrel between them. The destiny of both must be complete sometime. Verse 32. When a country is spiritually settled, those of extremes can go and live aside. It is nothing to govern such a state, or to proclaim extreme doctrines before them. But when a country is full of people, the two extremes and the mean must dwell in proximity. It is not an easy matter to govern them wisely. Verse 33. Whatever people can dwell together in great numbers on the smallest piece of ground, and yet have peace and plenty, such a people are the highest of all peoples. Verse 34. Where an extreme doctrine cannot be carried out, it is better to have a lesser extreme doctrine. People, like a grove of sheep, are much inclined to follow a leader. Herein, politicians and lawyers and judges run the state into war. Verse 35. To legislate in such a way that leaders cannot lead the multitude in the evil, this is wisdom. Were all leaders dead, the people themselves would not be very bad. Yet it is wrong to take any man's life, for life is something man hath no property in. Life resteth in Jehovah only, it is his. Verse 36. Before the ignorant and before the fools we speak by commandment. China hath passed that age. Our books must go persuasively, in the mean. Verse 37. To dictate to the learned is to cast one's treasures into the fire. By asking them questions, we can often lead them. Verse 38. Coaxing with effect is greater than dictatorship. Unobeyed, we preach to the rich man that he should give all he hath to the poor, and he walk away, giving nothing. When we say to him, give a little, he doth it. Therein the higher doctrine is the lower, and the lower doctrine is the higher, because it hath potency. Verse 39. The ancients said, the first best thing was to love the Creator. I think so too. But when a philosopher has asked me to prove that the Creator is a person and is worth loving, I am puzzled. To accept him as a person and all good without criticism, this I find giveth the greatest happiness. Verse 40. I have seen men who would pull the Creator to pieces and weigh his parts to know his worth. But such men end in disbelief in him. One such man who accomplished any good in the world I have not found. He is in the presence of goodly men like a fly that delighteth in breeding maggots, pretty enough for himself, but a breeder of vermin in the state. Verse 41. Yet he who saith, let the evil practice evil, because the Creator created them, is of a narrow mind. Or if he saith, Jehovah sent the rainstorm to destroy the harvest, or Jehovah sent fever to the dirty city, such a man lacketh discretion in words and judgment. Verse 42. But he who perceived that man is part of the creation in which he must do a part of the work himself, or fevers will result, such a man hath his understanding open in regard to the Father. Verse 43. Between the two, much casting of all things in Jehovah's face, and to little belief in him, life that mean, which worketh the perfection of man. Verse 44. To try to find the Creator with love and adoration, instead of with the dissecting knife, this leads man on the highest road. To trust in him, wherein we strive to do our best, this is a good philosophy. to lay about idly and not plant our fields, trusting in him, this is great darkness. Verse 45. A wise man, perceiving the defect of a society, will not censor it, but turn to and find a remedy. It is for such purpose the angels of the higher heavens raise up great men in the world. Verse 46.